Hey everyone, Pugs here with 2 new reviews for y'all. Today, I'm closing out Season 9 with Mutiny on the Krusty and the Whole Tooth. Man, it feels like I just started this season. Where'd the time go? These episodes have basically nothing in common other than their positioning in the season, so it's not like I even have a long-winded introduction to give either. Damn. Well, then I guess I won't waste time, and I'll go ahead and say thank you to everyone watching the video today. It especially feels good on these, bookend videos like this. And now, let's just get right into it. You know, Mutiny on the Krusty reminds me a lot of Pull Up a Barrel, to the point where I do get the two mixed up in my head from time to time. And, I mean, can you blame me? They both involve Mr. Krabs and Navy/pirate things, and the Krusty Krab, but I mean, if the episode is about Mr. Krabs, then usually the Krusty Krab is involved. And then most of all, these episodes are just relatively close together, being in the same season, and the same half of the same season too. This episode also reminds me of both Pineapple Fever and Spongehenge, given the windy/stormy weather aspect. That's a plot element all on its own. Mutiny on the Krusty starts off with a weather report, followed by some great visual gags as various things are carried in the wind. Now that's what I like to see, jumping right into the entertaining content, wasting no time. SpongeBob and Squidward are, worried about the rip current, which is essentially just the SpongeBobified version of a tornado, but Mr. Krabs isn't fazed by the bad weather at all. In fact, Mr. Krabs is really on one in this episode, telling people that all the money they brought into the Krusty Krab must be spent there. Oh boy, nobody tell him about debit cards. After a couple minutes, the Krusty Krab is carried away by the rip current, right after Mr. Krabs proclaimed that nothing would happen to the restaurant in true comedic fashion. The one to save the day here isn't Mr. Krabs, but SpongeBob, who turns the restaurant into a ship. I love how SpongeBob's ability to commandeer things varies from episode to episode, just like I mentioned in my review of Snail Mail. Squidward announces that everything is safe, and so the customers trapped inside the restaurant make him the new captain of the ship. I like how for once the customers here actually have a problem with Mr. Krabs' money-hungry ways. It's actually kind of realistic for once. Not that I need or necessarily want realism in the show about the talking sea sponge, but y'all know what I mean. The customers are so tired of Mr. Krabs' tyrannical ways that when they make Squidward their new captain, they're immediately ready to flog him, tie him to the mast, and not put the past behind them. You can guess which of these suggestions was SpongeBob's. Mind you, Mr. Krabs is stuck in a barrel for all of this, right? So when SpongeBob slowly starts winning the customers back to at least not hating Mr. Krabs ends up sliding out of the restaurant before anyone can save him. I love the way SpongeBob's freakout face is drawn here, like the face itself, but also the perspective of the shot is great. It really sticks out. And SpongeBob's dramatics about calling out for Mr. Krabs and then sticking $1 on the door for him is hilarious. Now, the customers might have shown an ounce of sense for once, but let us not forget that these are Bikini Bottomites, so when Mr. Krabs flies out of the restaurant, they immediately blame Squidward because they're utterly useless and lacking in accountability as per usual. Don't worry, I'm saying all of this good-naturedly, especially because they are pretty entertaining here. Anyway, the restaurant crash lands in the middle of nowhere and is immediately pounced on by a sea monster. And of course, the Bikini Bottomites immediately turn to Squidward and ask him to save them because he's the captain and they're useless. I think it's hilarious how these people are ready to fight Squidward if he doesn't fight the monster instead of all, fighting the monster. But again, that's a bit of realism, I suppose. And the way they throw Squidward out with a mop and some pans is hilarious, especially when it does absolutely nothing. But then Mr. Krabs crashes back onto the scene, literally, and I love how petty he is here, making the customers beg him to do something. I suppose he deserves to be a little petty since he did end up ejected from the Krusty Krab into the rip current because of the customers, but also because of his own actions, so... SpongeBob in this part is so great too, he's been great all episode, but him being devious and getting Mr. Krabs to come back by threatening to spend his first dime is hilarious, and fantastic. It's like they called upon the SpongeBob from Can You Spare a Dime just for me. We then get an amusing sequence with Mr. Krabs having the customers hype him up, and then we see him fight the monster, which is really enjoyable with lots of fun visuals. Also, when Squidward gets spit up, we see him in a pose that has become a bit of a running gag on its own, so I guess I'll make a note of that here. And then the ending of this episode is so, cute. I love how SpongeBob, since he always believed in Mr. Krabs, isn't forced to drag the Krusty Krab back with the rest of the customers and Squidward. It's those quasi-father-son crumbs, trust me. I enjoyed Mutiny on the Krusty. It's an episode that definitely feels shorter than it is, but that's not a bad thing at all. I think at times I could find myself slightly frustrated by this episode, but that's largely depends on my mood and my tolerance for purposefully frustrating writing, which this episode definitely relies on more than once. I think those kinds of plots and jokes are a very fine line to walk on, and this episode choosing to walk that line means that it gets some points off with me, because if I'm getting too frustrated half the time I'm watching it, then that's not good. And so this episode is going to be put in my great tier, where it comes in with a score of 8.4 out of 10. Well, here we are. The final episode of Season 9, The Whole Tooth. We made it. And hold on now, is that Hawaiian Train playing as the title card music for this one? I must be hearing things because wow, it's been a long time since we've heard that one. Not since To SquarePants or Not to SquarePants. What a blast from the past. Let's see if this episode keeps this pleasant surprise type of energy going. The Whole Tooth begins with funny faces that blow the ones in Face Freeze out of the water, and it's all brought upon by SpongeBob and Patrick having fun with their saltwater taffy at the Bikini Bottom Fair. Which, hey, nice to see another new location/event in Bikini Bottom. Love seeing this underwater world expand. But anyway, playing with this saltwater taffy gives Patrick a toothache, and that signals to me that this episode is definitely going to be leaning heavily towards the child side of the child-adult line, especially when Patrick acts pretty consistently with how he did in Suds, refusing to go to the dentist. His little shenanigans here to avoid going are pretty funny, but SpongeBob still forces him to go. Which is good, because I remember reading a while ago that mouth infections are like some of the most dangerous kinds because of the direct line to your brain, which makes sense to me. At first, The Whole Tooth seems like it's going to be one of those episodes about a character with a toothache refusing to go to the dentist because they're scared of them, like I said earlier. And thankfully, the episode switches up on this relatively quickly, because I don't really care about these types of plots, although I do at least appreciate the attempts at making the dentist look like a very horrific place here. But once this part of the episode passes, what we get instead is a plot about Patrick trying to avoid having his last baby tooth taken out, which is the cause of his toothache, and this is more interesting to me. And SpongeBob trying to convince Patrick to let his baby tooth go to Tooth Island is hilarious. However, see, and I understand why the episode does this, but why am I being forced to listen to a baby tooth cry for way too long in this episode? I've got a fight and flight instinct when it comes to babies crying, particularly on TV. Yeah, I can stand the sound well enough in real life to not at least lose my mind when it happens, but I absolutely loathe the sound on TV. And yes, I know the joke here is that Patrick is trying to rockabye bivalve his way out of getting the tooth removed, but that doesn't mean I want to be seeing this literally at all, or really hearing this. Things do improve once we move to the Krusty Krab. The joke with the seal was great, and Squidward breaking the news to Patrick about the Tooth Fairy is great too. As always, Squidward tries, and fails, to stamp on the childhood dreams of SpongeBob and Patrick, as Patrick is a bit too dense to even internalize what Squidward is saying. And Squidward gets what he deserves anyway. I don't think SpongeBob is a vindictive person, of course, but do I think he hit Squidward with that barrel on purpose? Well, no. But just imagine if he did. I think that would be funny. Patrick's tooth pain continues to get worse, and SpongeBob keeps trying to get him to go to the dentist, something that Patrick vehemently denies. And so we then move on to my favorite type of scene, a chase scene. I mean, why else would I like Mission Impossible, Fast and Furious, and John Wick so much? Well, I also adore The Equalizer, but I don't remember those movies having chase scenes. And to be clear, I do like these movies for reasons outside of chase scenes, but those scenes are certainly a bonus. As for the chase scene in this episode, this scene is full of so many fun visuals and so much expressiveness. I also love SpongeBob's outfit here with the shades and hat, and the music is great. We need more of this music for chase scenes. And by the end of the scene, Patrick finally agrees to get his tooth removed, which is done with very little fanfare. That night, Patrick wakes up to SpongeBob trying to take his baby tooth while dressed as a burglar, something that Squidward exposes because he's miserable as hell. I love Patrick's portrayal at SpongeBob seemingly pretending to be the Tooth Fairy, while Squidward acts like a loser about it. I say with love. Also, I loved the joke with Patrick pulling out a dictionary to really pour his heart out. But of course, SpongeBob wasn't lying. There really is a Tooth Fairy. Or, actually, it's the Tooth Fairy, which is some clever wordplay, I must say. I also love how SpongeBob and Patrick don't let Squidward renege on their bet. Low-key, they were not down with his bullshit in this episode, and I like that. The Whole Tooth wasn't a bad episode. I enjoyed it, but it definitely had a lot of things I didn't quite care for, like with the baby crying and the leaning on the child side of the line, though not as much as you'd think, and generally not being a kind of plot that I'm really into. However, it had lots of good things, lots of things that I did like a number of great jokes, an entertaining chase scene, and a plot twist that worked really well. And so I think this episode works best in my good tier, where it comes in with a score of 7.4 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. Well, we did it! We made it to the end of Season 9! I really can't believe how fast this has felt, even though it has been a few months. I guess it's because this was the first season I did while working full-time, so working like that also makes time go by a bit fast. Not sure, but whatever the case, I'm glad to be here. I'm of course already working on the Season 9 overview as we speak, so that should be out within the next week, and then after that, I don't know. I might do a small break again just so I can focus on writing out the Season 15 reviews, because that definitely takes some time and I want to get on doing those, but we'll see. Taking more breaks is probably something I'll be doing anyway, just because I need to. I just do. Doing anything for a long time without a break is just not sustainable, even if you love whatever that thing is, you know? Alright, well, I'll stop blabbering on about that now, and I'll just close things out here. I'll see y'all next time when I talk about Season 9.